originally a native of, sorry, lost my space, Colorado School of Mines. Originally a native of Madisonville, she was in Denver for the past 5 years when her and her husband decided to move their family to Lexington to be closer to the family. She has 2 boys under the age of 3, so never a dull moment in the Garcia household. And she enjoys hanging out with her family, trying new restaurants, and is counting down the minutes until break, which I think we all are doing. So Marissa, thank you for joining us. This session is being recorded. They will all be sent out tomorrow. They may end up in your junk or clutter. They will be coming from Eventbrite. So if you don't see them, make sure to check there. Maria? I'm sorry, Marissa, it is all you.
All right. Thank you, Paige. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in and being a part of this today. And thank you, Paige, for organizing it. This is a wonderful opportunity for everyone. So as Paige said, I am the CRM and retention strategist here at the system office. So the retention part is what we're going to kind of look at today. That involves the use of our program Starfish. I know there's kind of a wide variety across the system as far as usage levels with Starfish. So I'm just going to give you kind of a general overview today of how the system works, and then what you can do in it to be able to communicate and connect with your students, tracking them and enjoying in their successes and helping them through those struggles, all to ideally help them persist and get that degree. So I will be actually just sharing my screen with you as I work through Starfish, which means, and I'm on a single monitor, so I won't have access to monitor your questions or if anybody's raising hands or anything like that. So I will circle back around to all of those at the end. And if you have voice capabilities, feel free, if you do have a question in the middle of it, you can speak out and I will pause and answer that question as well. But otherwise, if you type your questions, I will see them at the end. All right, so I'm going to go on in here then and just share my screen with you. So the first thing I do want to point out, the very first Starfish training I ever did, I made the mistake of just starting from the homepage of Starfish, just kind of assuming that everyone knew how to get there. And then a gentleman raised his hand and said he didn't even realize Starfish was a thing that could be accessed outside of emails he would get for progress surveys that he needed to complete. So I've learned to back up and go over the step of you can actually access Starfish on your own. You don't have to wait, as an instructor, you don't have to wait for those progress survey emails to come out. There's various different ways you can get to it. You can go here through Blackboard, you'll see Starfish. You can go, there's a tile on MyPath, and you can go through PeopleSoft as well. So I'm just going to go through Blackboard, that's how I usually go in. And it will bring you to your Starfish homepage. So everyone's homepage will look a little different as mine loads. There we go. Depending on your roles, your connections, kind of what your job is within Starfish, what you use it for, your homepage may look different than this, and that's okay. And we'll go a little bit more into what you see here on the homepage in just a moment. But first, I want to start with setting up your profile. You don't have to set up a profile in Starfish to be able to be in there and be fully functional, but we do always recommend it as a good starting point because it kind of just builds that foundation of what you are going to present to students, what information they can find out about you, and kind of your level of interaction that you can have with them. So you access your profile by clicking on your name in the upper right-hand corner, and that is going to open up where you have these 3 different tabs that kind of make up your profile. This first one is just general information about you. Anything you include here is visible to the student, so you can limit it as much as you want, or you can tell as much as you want. It also gives you the opportunity to kind of just give a little overview and biography. That way students know who you are, what your role is at the college, and how you can help them in what capacity. Moving on from there, the Appointment Preferences tab is definitely necessary if you plan on scheduling office hours in Starfish, which I absolutely recommend, and we'll look at that a little more in depth here in a moment. But if you're going to have those office hours set up, then you definitely want to have your appointment preferences set up. Here's where you can determine the length of your appointments. Do you want a scheduling deadline so students can't sign up at 8:55 for a 9 a.m. appointment? Different things like that. You'll also enter your locations here. If you have various different locations where you hold your office hours, any of those will need to be entered here in order for you to actually pull those into scheduling your office hours. And lastly, on this tab, you can assign calendar managers, which would be other people that just have access to your calendar. So they would actually be able to see who the appointment is with, what students coming in, things like that. A lot of departments will utilize this feature if they have like an office manager or someone who actually checks students in for appointments. Then they allow them to be manager access. That way they can see who the student is and what time they're meeting and with whom. All right, so then moving on, email notifications is the last tab for your setting up your profile. Starfish is a retention tool. It is a communication tool as well. So it notifies a lot of people about a lot of things depending on what the rules are set up on the back end. You can still, as the end user, you can still have a preference of how many times you're being notified. So some people, for instance, anyone who's an early alert manager, gets a notification anytime a flag or a tracking item is raised on a student. That's a lot of emails that they could potentially be getting. So this is where you can kind of manage all of that depending on what your preferences are. Again, for those appointments, if you're running office hours from Starfish, you're going to want to set up your appointment notification emails. Do you want a reminder? Do you want a notice every time someone goes in and schedules, anytime a change is made, all of that kind of stuff. And then also the summary email. This is what's going to tell you all those tracking items. So you can get it daily, you can get it weekly, or you can get an individual email every time a tracking item is raised that pertains to you. So again, this, depending on what your roles are, you're not necessarily going to see every tracking item just because you check this box. It's only going to be those that you're connected to through the back end of Starfish. Here, my flag rules are empty, but any of you, if you're following along on your actual profile or if you go in to look at it later, you will see what rules you are actually connected to. So for instance, the financial aid role. Any financial aid counselor that has been given the financial aid role in Starfish would have the financial aid referral as one of their flag rules, whereas someone else wouldn't have that if they have no reason to be notified of a financial aid referral. So again, that portion will look different from user to user. One last important piece I want to point out on this page is if you are going to set up office hours in Starfish, it's important that your Outlook calendar talks with your Starfish calendar and vice versa. That way, if you schedule something in Starfish, it bumps it over to Outlook and marks you off as busy. And the same thing, if you schedule it in Outlook, it's going to talk back to Starfish and take you off as available. In order to do that, you need to check mark this box right here. And then if you click here and follow those instructions, it will give you step-by-step instructions of how to make sure that those two calendars are synced up and are talking to each other. If you go through those steps and you still start to, or feel like you're noticing that things aren't talking like they should, just feel free to reach out to me. We've had some issues in the past every now and then, but it's usually pretty easy to resolve. Okay, so that's your profile. Again, you don't have to go through all these steps of setting it up to be in there and be communicating with students and raising flags and doing all of that kind of stuff, but it's just a good piece to kind of wrap around and make sure that all the information is there that needs to be, and again, especially if you're going to utilize office hours. So on that office hour note, before we get too far away from that, I wanted to show what it looks like from a student's view if they were to go in and try to schedule office hours with someone who has their schedule set up through Starfish. It is so incredibly convenient and easy to follow. This is why I always encourage people, have your office hours available in Starfish and then educate your students at the beginning of the semester what that means and how they can access that, because it does make it a lot easier. So let me just go in here real quick. Let me go to the right place. I'm going to impersonate a student user. That way we can see what it actually looks like from their end, because the student page does look different. Whoops, did I type it wrong? Than what faculty and staff can see. There we go. So when a student logs in, they're going to be taken to their home page here, and then if they click home, they actually have this, these tools over here of different things. The success network for each student is going to be based upon who populates here, is based upon the rules that we've set up of what roles will populate in the success network. So as you can see, we've got early alert managers, we've got instructors, we'll have advisors, different things like that. If a faculty or staff member has set up office hours in Starfish, then the student will see this hyperlink that says schedule appointment. If they have not set up any office hours, then they will just see online scheduling not available. So I'm going to go down here, and let's say she wants to schedule an appointment with her academic advisor. So she'll go into Elizabeth and say schedule appointment. She will then see, you can look at it just by day or week, she will see anything available. So based on Elizabeth's sign-up preferences that she set in her profile, a student is not capable of signing up for any office hours that are occurring within the same day that they're trying to schedule. So that would bump it out to tomorrow, but as you can see, then Ashley could be on here and see that all these appointments are available that she could still sign up for. All she has to do is pick one. She can then select the reason that she's coming. So there's various different reasons that we've set up that students can choose. She can then give a little more detail if she wants. It's going to tell her where those office hours are based off of the locations that you set up in your profile. And if there's any instructions that you want to leave for a student, it will tell them that as well. And then all Ashley has to do is hit submit, which I'm not going to do, but just so you know. And then Elizabeth would be notified that an appointment was scheduled based on her notification preferences. That time would disappear as being available, and Ashley would have her appointment set up with Elizabeth. So as you can see, that was like a less than a 2-minute process. I remember in college stalking my professors, trying to catch them during their office hours and make those appointments, and this is a lot more convenient than that. So I really, really do recommend to get your office hours up and going in Starfish. And then, like I said, the second piece of that is to kind of educate your students on what that looks like at the beginning of each semester. All right, so let me close out of here and get back into my view of Starfish, so we're not impersonating the student. And we'll move on to just kind of looking at that homepage. So this homepage can be quite confusing for a lot of people, specifically the flags I'm managing. So if you notice, if you've ever seen this on your page, you will see this big long list of flags that you're managing. This is not as straightforward as it would seem. This language is pretty definitive. It kind of makes you feel like, okay, I'm in charge of these people, I should be doing something with them, but you don't know who these people are, you don't know what you should be doing with them, and that can kind of evoke a sense of anxiety. What this really means in Starfish terms is basically any student that you have any kind of connection with. It can be a very low-level connection, it could be as high level as advisor assigned. Any student you have a connection with, it's going to show you if they have any tracking items raised. The way KCTCS is set up with Starfish, we actually have an all-staff role that each college utilizes. So Jefferson has a JCTC all-staff, Maysville has an MCTC all-staff. It's college-specific, but usually every user at the college will have that role assigned to them. That gives you a very low-level connection with every student on your campus. So this could be a pretty lengthy list, and the majority of students may be people that you have no idea who they are. So I always suggest do not utilize this as kind of trying to reference of how your students are doing and if you need to be following up with them. You can even minimize this box if it makes it easier, just to not even see that when you log in. And the best way to do that is to go into the Students tab up here. That is going to show you specifically, let me get on My Students here, specifically who your students that you have a connection with. Now again, you'll be able to see that big long list here as well because one of your connections will be that all staff, My Students type connection. But you can also drill down a little and more fine-tuned to see your particular students. My account is not a good example of this because I don't have any personal connections with any students. So I'm going to impersonate once again one of our early alert managers and let you see what they would typically see. So here not only are you going to have the choice of going to the connection based off of the roles that you've been assigned, but also if you're an instructor, any courses that you're teaching will be broken out by course. So when Amanda goes in and goes to Students and My Students, this connection drop-down box, she has a lot more options than what I had. So she's got all of these actual roles that she has, and then she also has her actual courses that she teaches. So you can select that course. It's going to bring up the students in that class. So there's just the 32 here. And that's going to be a much more accurate picture if you're wanting to really kind of see how your particular students are doing, and not that flags I'm managing on the home page. So from here, you can do a lot with the student record. You can always just check mark a student and then choose what your options are of what you're wanting to do with them. Or you can actually go into the student record itself by clicking on their name. When you do that, it will load the student record. Sometimes it's a little slow, so we'll see if it'll pop up here for us in just a moment. And then from there, you can do all the things that you might want to do. So you can raise a flag, make a referral, give a kudos. You can send an email. You can leave a note, all those things. So we will look at the tracking items here in a minute because I think that's obviously the biggest piece that people think about when they think about Starfish. But first, I just want to touch on the other options that you have and other tools that are available as well. So you can email the student just by hitting message. You can leave a note. One thing I want to point out that's very important about notes, you will notice when you select the drop-down to choose what type of note you're making, you're going to get this little red reminder on all of them. All of these things are disclosable under FERPA. I think this kind of confuses people because then you also have this option down here to select and say this note should be private. All that means, if you select that the note should be private, is that at that moment, the student cannot see it and no other faculty or staff members can see it. However, because everything is disclosable under FERPA, the student could still access it at some point in time. So I always tell people to just operate in Starfish kind of with the mindset of that the student is going to see everything eventually. Obviously, that may not be true, but it's just kind of a safe way to kind of get your mind geared. Just think everyone's going to see this, so just kind of always keeping that professional tone and things like that when leaving notes about students. If you do shared, then it's shared on the student record. The student can see it right away. Other faculty and staff with a connection to that student can see it right away. And then you even have the option of sending a copy via email to the student as well. So just a quick thing about notes and kind of just Starfish in general, just assume everyone, including the student, is going to see everything at some point in time. And then you can upload files as well, but one shortfall or shortcoming of the file upload is that the students cannot see what you upload here. So it's helpful if there's any kind of document that you just want to stay attached to that student record for other faculty and staff to be able to access. But if you're wanting to do like a transfer plan or a degree plan or something that you'd want the student to be able to access, you don't want to use this file upload tool because currently it is not accessible by the student. So, and we'll touch on the intake form here in a little bit as well. So I'll get back to that piece. Okay, and I should note, if there is a file uploaded, you would see it down here, as you can see, student files, and then you'd be able to access it from there. So now the main piece of Starfish that everyone kind of associates with it, the actual tracking items piece. So you can do a couple different things with tracking items. You can raise a flag, and I'll actually show you the list of all the flags available here in a moment. You can make a referral, and then you can also give a kudos. If you wanted to do that on this particular student, you would just hit flag. You would then select, you'll have the different flags that are available to you. Again, it's going to be kind of dynamic based on what role you have and what connection you have with that student. It'll show you the available flags to you that you can raise. You could select one. Again, it's going to remind you this is all disclosable under FERPA. And then you could give a comment as far as, why you raised the flag. Some are more self-explanatory than others. And then you save it, and that flag would automatically be raised. At that point, the student is going to get an email notification letting them know that this flag has been raised, and then the other appropriate people within Starfish are going to get the appropriate notification as well. So early alert managers, other instructors, advisors, anybody who's set up through all those rules will see particular flags that are raised. You would do the same thing to make a referral and to give a kudos. So at this point, I'm going to hop out of well, actually, yeah, I can go and hop out of here. Sorry, I was just thinking if there was anything else I needed to show from an actual faculty member's perspective, but I don't think there is. So I'll go back in as me, and I will show you all of those flags and referrals and kudos that are available. So again, when looking at these, it'll vary by student and what your connection is with them when you actually see it, when you go in to raise one. So you might see some here that then when you go in to raise a flag, you don't see it as an option. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to look into it and see what's going on, but chances are it's just a connection role thing that's going on. So here's all the different flags that you could potentially raise on a student. And again, all of these are designed to help a student persist. The whole idea with Starfish is if we can have these early alerts to these risk factors, then we can better surround the student, better support them with the necessary tools to be able to persist through whatever those risk factors may be that they have. So various different ones that you can raise. Some that I definitely want to point out that I think a lot of people don't know exist is that the student can actually raise flags on themselves. So that's something, again, that would be probably more of a training piece for the students to let them know that this is a potential option that they have. If you look at this whole group here, all of these I statements, with the exception of the in danger of failing, that's just thrown in there because it's alphabetical. These I statements are all ones that a student can go in and say, hey, I need to talk to my academic advisor. All they do is raise that flag, and then the appropriate people are notified, and then they will follow up with them. So again, just like scheduling appointments, it's a pretty easy process for students to reach out and say, I need some help, not sure really where to go, but the right people are going to get in touch with them from then on out. And then you can also make referrals. Just a short list of referrals that we have right now. So again, maybe you know that one of your students hasn't filled out their FAFSA yet and they're confused and they're not sure what to do. You can make a financial aid referral. The appropriate people are notified, and then they will follow up with the student to help them in whatever financial aid matters they might have. And lastly, you can give kudos, which is everyone's favorite because everyone likes to give a good job and share in that celebration with students. And I think kudos are so important, especially with our particular student population. Many of our students have not told anyone in their lives that they're going back to school. They don't have a support system at home. They're trying to kind of keep it quiet because they're afraid if they don't do well, if they fail, they don't want to have to tell people that they failed. They're doing this all on their own. And that can be very isolating and very lonely. And then when they do get a great score on an exam or when they are improving in a course, they don't have anyone to share in those celebrations. And that's one of the best parts about those things when they happen to us, is getting to share it with people who are also genuinely excited for us. So to be able to go in there as an instructor or an advisor or whoever it may be and just say, hey, I notice you, I see you're doing a great job, I'm going to let you know that, and you raise one of these kudos, that can go so far. We get feedback constantly from faculty and staff that their students respond all the time to these kudos emails they get, saying, hey, thanks for noticing, or yeah, I've really been studying hard, or whatever it may be. So it doesn't take long to do as the faculty or staff member. You can go in there, raise a quick kudos, but the impact that it has lasts for a very, very long time. So those are the kudos currently that you can raise. Now, as an instructor, if there's any instructors on the call right now, you will get progress survey emails a few times a semester. It really depends on your college, depending on how many surveys they want to send out. Some just do 1 or 2, some do up to 4 or 5. And then on each of those surveys, it's going to give you the opportunity to raise certain flags, make certain referrals, or give certain kudos. And you basically just have your course lists broken down, and you go through and just make those selections for each student in each particular course. You submit it, it raises all the stuff it needs to raise in the system, and it's good to go. But you can also get in there throughout the entire semester and work on your student list like we were looking at, which again, mine isn't great, but to look at your student list and then just say this particular student I want to make a referral for, or this particular student I want to give a kudos to. So you don't have to wait for those progress surveys. You can be in there working the entire semester to kind of get through and make sure that you're keeping track of your students. So the other piece of the Students tab, oh, I'm sorry, I need to back up just a moment. And I do need to go back into Amanda's to show you what it looks like when you go to clear a flag. I skipped over that part, I apologize. Let me get back in here. Our clearing a flag used to be pretty generic. You couldn't really give a whole lot of explanation, or you didn't have to give a whole lot of explanation as to why you were clearing this flag, and then it would just be resolved, and it kind of left the loop open. Maybe the flag raiser saw, okay, it's been resolved now, but I have no idea, was it resolved successfully? Did they actually get a hold of the student? Were they able to give them the services they needed? It just really left a lot of questions kind of floating out there. So now, if you go in to resolve a flag for one of your students, all you have to do is just hover over the actual tracking item, and then you will see this clear option down here. When you select that, you now have these individual reasons that you get to select, saying exactly why you chose to clear that flag. And by clearing a flag, I want to make sure everyone understands, you're not deleting it. It's not disappearing to where nobody sees that it was ever in existence. It's just simply going to show as resolved now on the Student Tracking tab instead of active. So you get to go in and say, okay, it was successfully addressed, it was not successfully addressed, I made a mistake, whatever it may be. I've kind of at this point left it up to each college to determine how they want to identify or define successfully versus not successfully, or if they just want to leave it up to each user. That's completely up to the colleges. I'm fine either way. It's just if you all want to be able to kind of have a overall definition to understand, okay, in order for something to be successfully addressed or cleared as successfully addressed, all these things have to be met, and so on and so forth. The nice thing about having all these reasons now is that we can actually report out on these. So at the end of each semester, we can run a tracking report and see 67% of flags were cleared, that were cleared were successfully addressed, or 32% were not successfully addressed, or whatever it may be. So it really can help each college start to narrow in on what are we doing with contacting these students? Are our current methods successful? Are they effective? Do we need to kind of regroup and see what else there is out there? It's just really good information to have now. And then when you clear it, you can give more information if you want. But it also will send that email immediately to the person who raised the flag, letting them know this has been cleared and it was successfully cleared or not successfully cleared or whatever it may be. So it really just gives a little more communication and helps close that loop a little better than what it was doing before. So, okay, I think that is officially now all I needed Amanda for. So we'll go back in here, and I want to show you the student intake form before we finish up here. The intake form has been available for, I think, since the inception of Starfish, but it hasn't really been used too heavy until this past semester. Colleges have really started to kind of branch out a little bit more and start to see what they can do with this intake form. So the intake form was designed with all these questions, and I'll just kind of scroll through different questions to try to help identify risk factors that students might have as early as possible. So again, we can get them the correct services, we can give them the support they need, and make sure that one of these risk factors does not become the reason that they don't persist. We're trying to revamp our form right now. We're kind of looking at what other questions we might want to include, what questions we want to take out. And we also want to make the answer a little, or make the questions a little more quantitative, because right now it's a lot of qualitative questions, meaning like there's one on here that says, how many hours a week do you plan on working? Well, it's a free text field, so students could put 21. And if you try to filter and find your students that are working certain hours a week, you'd have to literally filter on each number to make sure you're capturing everyone. So we'll go in and kind of update those answers to say 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and give them actual choices to choose. Makes the filtering feature a little better. This filtering feature is new. It's pretty nice, and what you can do is if you're looking at your students, so again, I'm looking at a large number of students because I've just got kind of a general connection with a lot of them. I could go in and say, okay, of these 526 that are showing right now, I only want to see students that have attended another college or university, and we'll do that question I just talked about. How many hours do you work in a typical week? I'm going to say anybody who answered 20. And then I'll say filter, and it's thinking, and then it dropped my list down to 12. So of those 526 students, these 12 have attended another college or university and are planning on working 20 hours a week while in school. So then from there, you could really target this group. If there was, in any group, anything that you filtered on that you feel like, okay, this particular group of students that answers this question this way needs to receive this information. You could go in and select everyone and then hit message, and that would send one group email to everyone, so you don't have to go in and email them individually. Same thing with notes. You could have everybody selected and hit a note, and then you can make a note of these students are working 20 hours a week, whatever it may be, whatever you want to attach to all of their records, you could do that as well. So it's a really cool feature to be able to filter, and once we can get it kind of revamped a little bit and get the question answers, like I said, in a more quantitative fashion, I think it'll be even a more useful tool. So right now I've heard from colleges that they're using it in a variety of different ways, some at orientation, some during advising sessions. I think some are doing it with like their FYE courses, having students go in and fill this out. And this form can be updated. So as you see, it'll give you the last updated date. It's going to tell you when the student actually filled it out. And this is a good piece of information so that if you wanted to get back in there and update the answers with the student, you would know, okay, we haven't looked at your intake form for 6 months. Let's get in there and see, has anything changed? Because a lot of these questions, the answers will change. I mean, their goals, their major that they're interested in, whatever it may be, they could absolutely change their mind as they go through here. So it's a good thing to be able to update and kind of go from there and make sure that everybody's on the same page with what the students' goals are, what their current risk factors are, because maybe some of those risk factors have disappeared, thankfully, but maybe there's new ones that have entered the picture now, and we need to be aware of that as well. So, okay, I think my 30 minutes is up, so I'm going to pop out of Starfish, and I'm going to go back over here, stop sharing my screen, and come over here and see if there's been any questions or any comments that I can answer for you. So let me work my way down through here real quick.
Yeah, Marissa, we have had a few. It started with Lori Maltby asking, how do you reconcile Eastern and Central time when you set up your office hours?
Ooh, good question, Lori. So I will reach back out to you on that, and I can let the group know as well. This is an issue that is an ongoing issue, and we're working with Starfish support right now. And there's a whole, I'm not a tech person, so forgive my lack of proper terminology here, I'm sure. But there's a whole like patch that needs to be applied and updates and this and that for our particular system, because we do have students that fall on that weird, they live in Central Time but might be attending a campus on Eastern Time and things like that. So we are working on that. It is not a perfect system currently. I think the campuses that are having the hardest time with it are those that fall closer to that Eastern Central split. If you're definitely Central or if you're definitely Eastern, I think you're doing a little better with it, but it's still definitely an issue that we are aware of and we're working on. So I will make sure that I will follow up with you on that issue.
And Marissa, if you get an answer that you want me to send out to everybody, just send that over to me and I'll send that out when we send out your recording for today.
Oh, perfect. I will do that.
Next question was from, let me scroll up, I don't have their name, Deborah Hodge. Are there ways you can combine your calendar and Starfish that will not show you are busy all day, every day of the week?
Not currently. So yeah, if you've got like, let's say you designate walk-in office hours all day Wednesday in Starfish. Unfortunately, currently it's going to block you out all day Wednesday in your Outlook as well. It's a feature enhancement that I have actually submitted to Starfish requesting, is there a way that people can kind of manage that a little better, because we have had some users with issues, but it's in their feature review process. So currently, no, but hopefully soon.
Thank you. Had another one from Lori. Did she hear you correctly that you do not recommend using file to upload a degree pathway, for example? And if so, how would you upload a file that the student and other college personnel can access?
Yes, exactly. So you can definitely use it to upload, but with the knowledge that the student cannot access it. So if it's still beneficial to you to have it attached to their record for other faculty and staff to see and for like an advisor to see repeatedly, then that's fine. Obviously, still do it. We are currently piloting, and forgive me, I don't remember, I think there's 5 or 6 schools that we're piloting. Our TS group is piloting to look into a PeopleSoft version of how we can start to upload files that are viewable by the student and everyone. So I feel like all my answers are a standby. We're working on it, but we are working on that. It's piloting for the spring semester right now, or will be for the spring semester, and so we're hopeful that that will be kind of a fix, because we've reached out to Starfish and they have no intentions of making that file upload viewable to students at this time. So again, there's nothing wrong with using it, and obviously it could still be beneficial for other people to see, but just know the student can't see it, and at this time, we don't have a system for the student to see it, but we're working on that with our TS group.
Thank you so much. Carol Segura was asking, is Starfish through PeopleSoft as well? And I think you said that it was.
Yes, yeah, so you can get through the student part of PeopleSoft. There's a Starfish link there as well.
Okay. Marcy Dixon asked, can I use the filter for classes I am teaching?
Yes, you can. So you would probably want to just use the connection drop down to then select the class that you're teaching. And then over to the right, you're correct, there is an actual filter as well that you could apply to that particular class. So then you could apply the filter of that you only want to see flags that are raised for those students, or certain attributes and things like that. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily even have to filter to see the classes you're teaching, but more so using that connection drop down.
Okay, it looks like that answered her question for her. Good, thank you so much. And then Carol was asking, so is it something that any school that has Blackboard can use? I think she's talking about Starfish, and where it originates from. In other words, does it come with Blackboard when a school uses that, or is it an outside thing that's brought in? Starfish is a separate tool, Carol, that we have purchased and integrated with Blackboard, PeopleSoft, our other tools. And Marissa, feel free to add to that, but I knew that it was a separate tool.
Nope, exactly. Yeah. So it's actually through a parent company called Hobson's that has a lot of admissions and retention tools. And yeah, it's not, it doesn't just come along with a Blackboard contract. It's a separate thing that you purchase.
Okay, Carol, thanks we got that clarified and answered for you. Elizabeth saying that she wished faculty could do progress surveys. She just suspended a student and 0 flags referrals were posted on a Starfish, no indicators whatsoever. The response team didn't have a chance to intervene with that student. So that was just a comment more than a question. So thank you, Elizabeth, for that.
Okay, and yeah, Elizabeth, oh, I'm sorry, Paige. I was going to say, I might, Elizabeth, I might reach out to you and talk a little more about that situation and see what we can do for future references for sure.
Great. Thanks so much, Marissa. Any other questions for Marissa? That was a great session, very informative. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with everyone. This session has been recorded and it will go out probably tomorrow. Make sure to check your junk and or clutter. Usually clutter is where it shows up in that. So we will get that out to you guys. Thank you so much. Our next session starts at noon. You are welcome to just hang out in the room, or if you need to jump off and then come back in, that is fine as well. So our next session is Julia LaFoon Jackson from Hopkinsville and putting yourself in your students' shoes. So we'll be back in about 23 minutes or so. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.